Welcome to the lecture for Module 8 on feminism. In this lecture, we will define feminism in the context of international relations, look at some of its assumptions, examine criticisms, and provide a concrete example of how feminism can be applied in the world of international relations. So to begin, in terms of feminism in IR, it refers to a group of approaches that highlight the role of gender and intersectionality in international relations. There are several different types of feminism that are worthy of consideration here, so it's important to distinguish between them. There's many different types, but most of the common ones that are discussed in this context include liberal feminism, postmodern feminism, and post-colonial feminism. Liberal feminism is oftentimes the variant that people most think of when they are thinking about feminism, which deals with the taken for granted quality of genders, that there are meaningful differences between men and women, and it advocates for greater equality between men and women. Postmodern feminism, by contrast, looks at feminism through a different lens and argues that there are not significant differences between men and women and that they are the result of constructed gender norms. And then finally, post-colonial feminism takes intersectionality into the course of this analysis by examining how other factors like the kind of country that people are in and how that affects our understanding of how international relations operates, in addition to factors like gender. So, feminist theory has made two main contributions to the study of international relations over the past several decades. One is that it has made women visible in terms of exposing their lived experiences and examining their absence from leadership and the role that they play in institutions like the United Nations. Another contribution is that it has exposed and deconstructed gender norms. In particular, thinking of gender as a powerful meta-narrative that constructs what we think of as the assumptions that undergird international relations, whether it's the units of analysis that we focus on, the kinds of actions that are considered to be relevant that states can undertake, and the sort of realms of possibility that there are for action at the international level. One area of this particular way of thinking that we can see play out is in thinking about how masculine norms and feminine norms permeate our thinking of international relations. So, for example, when a country engages in war, we tend to think of that as being associated with masculinity. And we think of femininity as maybe being a defensive posture or pacifism by contrast. But again, these are ideas that have relations to gender that are not necessarily required to think about the role that states play in international relations, but they are nevertheless part of how international relations plays out, how the mainstream theories have talked about international relations for many years. And so they have this subversive way of coloring how we talk about international relations and what we think of as the proper domain of states and even the actors that are beyond the state. So some of the assumptions that are associated with feminism include that gender matters in the study of international relations and it is socially constructed. Second, that a focus on gender provides a more complete view of international relations, which thus far has spent much time and energy focusing on the experiences of men, either in the military or in positions of leadership, without giving enough credence to the role that women play in international relations. Third, that women are essential actors in international relations, even if they perform somewhat non-traditional roles that we tend to not think of as associated with the study of international relations. And then finally, there's this idea that the distinction between the public and private spheres is false. For example, during wartime, we tend to associate the war efforts with what men on the battlefield are doing, but we tend to focus less on what women are doing back at home or in factories or in other areas, even on the battlefield. There are, of course, criticisms associated with feminism, one of which is that there are internal disagreements about the role of gender and the goals of feminism. We can see this clearly in terms of liberal feminism and postmodern feminism, which disagree about the extent to which gender norms should be taken for granted. Also, another criticism is that feminism focuses less on empirically testable hypotheses and more on personal experiences and narratives, which may be richer, but also are less inclined to fall into the perspective of a scientific approach to the study of politics. So an example of feminism in international relations can be seen in the course of looking at female leaders. There are assumptions about whether women can be heads of state, and those assumptions are driven by norms relating to masculinity. Feminine traits are not typically associated with leadership qualities, and women often have to act in masculine ways in order to be taken seriously and to be considered viable for leadership positions. So this creates a double standard. Women cannot be either too emotional or too cold, because that will frustrate their ability to obtain leadership positions. And a great example of this can be seen during the 2008 presidential election when Hillary Clinton was running against the competitor Barack Obama, who later became president. And she gave an interview in which she cried on television. And one of the criticisms of Hillary Clinton had been that she was too cold, too rational, too calculating, and not warm enough to be seen as the kind of female leader that would be potentially the first president of the United States. But when she went on television and gave an interview in which she cried, we saw the exact opposite kind of charge levied against her, that she was now too irrational, too emotional to be charged with becoming president of the United States. So this example helps to highlight some of the catch-22s that women find themselves in, and this is a result of gender norms that feminism identifies as part of international relations.